In this episode, we'll be covering PHP date and time. And using the PHP date and time functions, we can get the current date, we can set a date, and we can do a bunch of different date and time manipulations and essentially display it in a nice format. So let's go ahead and just kick things off, and let's start off with our date function. So I'm going to echo out, and I'm going to use the function date, and I'm going to pass it a variable. And this is going to be the current month. So I'm going to say the date, month. And if I were to save this and we go back here to our app and reload, you can see that we get 01. And this is the month of January. So that's why we're getting 01 right here. We could also then have the current day, and it is the 8th day of January. So we get 8, and we could also get the current year. So then we could also combine all of these, and we could say m-d-y, and that will display the current month, day, and year. So there are also a bunch of different ways that you can format the current date. You could even say capital F, and that will give us the string representation of the current month. We could also then say lowercase l, and that will give us the current day of the week. And there's just a whole bunch of things that we can add to this date function to get the correct date format that we want to display. And I would probably even just recommend Googling PHP date and time. And you can see here that under the php.net manual, we can scroll down and they show us how we can get all of these different formats that we want. So easy enough, that's how we can display the current month, day, and year. And we can also display the current time. So I can say the current hour, minute, and second. And then using the lowercase a is going to give me a representation of whether this is AM or PM. So I can go ahead and save that. And we go back to our app and reload, and we get that it's 10:58 p.m. And that actually is not my current time zone. My time zone is actually the Los Angeles time zone, but this is using the UTC time zone by default, which is the universal time zone. And in most cases, this is what PHP uses as default. But we can go ahead and change that. So I can say date, default, time zone set, and I want to show the America/Los Angeles time zone. So if I go ahead and do that and we go back here and we reload, you can see that we get 2:58:54. So we can set the current time zone. We can also get the current time zone. I believe that we just changed that set to a get. And it will give us the current time zone that we have set. So if I were to save that and reload, you can see that we get America Los Angeles is the current time zone. And if I were to remove this line and I reload, you can see by default it is the UTC time zone. So just make sure to keep that in mind when you are displaying the current time. If it's not the correct time, you may need to set your default time zone. So using the date function, let's go ahead and just display the current month, day, and year, as well as the time. So I'm going to add this to an H1 and say the current date and time is, and then I'm going to echo out, and I'm just going to kind of create my own format. I'm going to say the current string of the month, so that would be capital F, and then I can say D, which is the current day, and then I can say capital Y, which is the year, and I'll just have a space, and I will show the time. Okay, so if I go ahead and save that and we go back here and reload, I can see that the current date and time is January 8th, 2020, 11:32 p.m. So make sure to get to know the date function. That's how you can display and how you can even set some dates and then even do differences between two dates as well. So you can come here and kind of just play around with the date function and just get to know it. And one more thing that I want to show you is that the date function also takes in a timestamp as the second argument. And by default, it is just the current timestamp, but we could also possibly make a new time using the make time function. So what I could do here is I could say make time, and then I can just create my own Unix timestamp. So I can pass in the hour, minute, second, and I can also pass in the month, day, and year. So maybe I want to say 01 of, we'll say 30 of 1999. So if I were to save that and reload, we get that it's January 30th, 1999 at 12 o'clock p.m. So by default, the time function is used, and that will just display the current Unix timestamp. So if I were to go back here and reload, you can see that we get the value that we got before. So let's go ahead and see what this Unix timestamp looks like. So I'm just going to say echo time. And if I go back here and reload, you can see that we get this long number. And this is essentially a numerical representation of a Unix timestamp. And you'll probably hear Unix timestamp again and again because it is obviously the numerical representation of the current time when it comes to displaying it on a computer. So the Unix timestamp is the current digit from January 1st of 1970. And I believe that's just when the Unix timestamp was created. So they just decided that that is the beginning, is January 1st of 1970 up until now. And this is the numerical representation of that Unix timestamp. So make sure to play around with the date function and even the time function. And then remember, you can also use mktime to make a current Unix timestamp and pass that in as a second argument to the date function. But that is pretty much it. That is the basics of the PHP date and time function. Go ahead and play around with it a little bit more and get more familiar with it. It may be a little tricky at first, but once you get used to it, it's very easy to format date and time using PHP. Hey, thanks for checking out this PHP Basics video series. I hope you follow me on Twitter at TNYLEA. And if you're interested in moving on to the next video, go ahead and click right up here. And if you want to check out my latest course called SaaS Adventure, be sure to click right there and it will teach you how to create your own profitable software as a service. But that's it for now. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video.